people are popping in their assignments. Now, quite a few people still to go. And that's okay.
Yeah, we've got some great ones that have been submitted already. So thank you. And I think our due date is the end of the day today. So see how you go with that. If you need an extension, let us know. But we look forward to receiving them all.
Yeah. And we'll give out some of those prizes for exceptional assignments next module. And we'll also at the end probably of next module, we'll share some information on all of those topics, because I know some of the participants were interested and intrigued by some of those topics that they're not doing the assignment on, and it's probably a good idea for them to get a bit of that knowledge. But we've hit the record button, so it means we're getting into it for a Friday. And this group, weekly trivia has popped up.
We do. We're missing out on our weekly company trivia, aren't we?
I know, but we did our own little trivia. Okay. We had a really great session with this group last time, Marissa. They really engaged, lots of questions, lots of comments, answering my questions. It's great. Ran out of time a little bit, and I jumped over a case study that I want to just jump into. I will ask the group some questions, but just like last time, Marissa's going to be in the background monitoring the chat. If there's anything that pops up, let's chuck it in, and I'm going to go. Here it is. Okay. So this is an intersection. We have an arterial road here, which is, it's a high-speed highway. It's 100 kilometers per hour. We've got a local government road here, which is a fairly major collector road. And over here, we've got a unsealed road, which is part of the, sorry, I'm just going to have to turn this off.
So close your Teams, I think.
I think you are spot on. Hopefully that helps. Apologies, everyone. The excitement of Teams. This is an unsealed road, local government road. Now, what's happening is there's some big developments happening down here, subdivisions and the like. And we've got the council proposing to seal this road, formalise the intersection a bit. Didn't work. And this is what it's going to look like. Now, without knowing anything about this, intersection and not really getting to be able to do site inspections, I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of a road safety auditor who's been given the designs and the plans to build this. And just checking, what do you think will be the crashes that will happen as a result of doing this work? And why do you think that they will happen? And while you have a ponder of that and type it into the chat, I will try to fix my Teams, even though I closed it. So let's have a look. Yeah. So it's okay. Now, I want you to not just tell me the type of crash, but also why that crash is occurring. Okay, good. Teams is on Do Not Disturb. Let's hope that works. Okay, failure to give way. Priority stop give way. Yep. Right through. Overshoot. Okay, Chris, well done. So these are all good. Yeah, two Chris's. Two Chris's are sort of talking about that crash mechanics of the overshoot, the failure to give way. Now, why, though? I'm trying to get a bit more of a sense of why. Okay, we've got some people worried about site distance issues, and that would be something to have a look at, definitely. I like Anthony's point there. See-through effect. Driver might brake too late, fail to stop altogether. Why? Let's explore that. Why? Why have those people sort of said, "Oh, I'm worried that this is going to create that"? I think Chris has sort of got it. Yeah, and we're starting to, Lucinda's nicely sort of articulating this. So let's give a few prizes out there. Give one to Lucinda, Renuka there, and Odine as well, in the sense that what we've got here, if I go back, is vehicles approaching here. Get quite a visual that the road ends because there's this big change. And they know something's really coming up. As soon as it's sealed, they're looking down there, which continues the road straight on. So we've created that avenue effect, that see-through effect, that dynamic visual obstruction. Now, I didn't show you the sort of ground level photos. I do this now, though. Don't worry about all the sort of burnout marks on the road. I mean, we've got the curbing, the new curbing and the like. So vehicles coming down here are sort of overshooting. You can see how perfectly it all lines straight up. And then from the other direction, we've got these queues of power poles. We've got this avenue effect. Okay, they've got 2 stop signs, like they're trying to provide that warning. But as I told you last session, like geometry trumps signage and line marking. So these signs are just trying to lessen this geometric challenge of a big see-through effect. And a driver, it could be foggy, they could be half asleep, they could be a little bit distracted by something or intoxicated, a little bit intoxicated. Like, there's a lot of clues subconsciously to them that their road continues on unabated. So, like, the interesting thing, and the reason I bring this up as a little bit of a case study, is there was no road safety audit undertaken in this project because the council, the local government who was managing this, their justification was, well, no, we are improving things. We're making this intersection better. We're following all the standards in the infrastructure design manual, and we're just improving this. This is going to be much better for our community, much safer. So even though everything looks like it's getting better and it's improving things, having that road safety audit process, that independent set of eyes, and it's great to see, like, all these comments that have come in, and I only just jumped onto one of them, but I think all these other things that people are bringing up. Do we have appropriate sight distances out of here? What's the advanced signage? Because we've got this straight through. We've got people concerned about other crash types, right throughs, no turn facilities, no channelized turns, so rear ends could happen as vehicles are propping. These are all really great things to be looking at. But nobody really looked at these as part of this project because they were just following their design standards. So the moral of it is that we really need to integrate that process of road safety auditing in for all of our infrastructure upgrades of any substance. Now, the reason I have all of this on this side is that we were called in to do a black spot investigation because there was this massive jump in death and serious injury at this location after this happened. Okay, there was an increase in volume of traffic, so that factors into it. There's more exposure, there's more vehicles coming through. But very clearly, like at a black spot investigation level, see-through effect, vehicles braking late, entering here, being struck by vehicles going 100 kilometers an hour. It's unsurvivable. So now okay, let's just play this out a little bit more. What do you think you could have recommended as a road safety auditor to lessen this risk? What are some of the recommendations that you could make? Staggering the intersection, prize for Chris Saunders there. Some warning signs, Amar, prize there. We had some more on warning signs, some more staggering the approach. Anthony, change the intersection form altogether, roundabout. So prize there for Anthony. Now, like 10 years later, so this is 10 years old, that is a roundabout. Finally, it cost a lot of our community their lives and serious injuries. Finally got to a roundabout, and there hasn't been any fatalities or serious injuries since. We've got Rick with a hand up, I think. We'll see if Rick wants to actually chat to us, or that was maybe an accidental hand up. I'm just looking. So audible pavement markings is a good one as well. So that rumble strips across the road, advanced warning, different pavement markings, putting a median in. Tolini, I hope I pronounced that right. I think you're talking about a splitter island, and I really like splitter islands. So there's my little splitter island and my splitter island. So a splitter island does this wonderful job of assisting vehicles approaching to understand that they don't have priority or there's something important coming up. They reduce overshoot crashes by about 45%. So actually, they reduce all crashes by about 45%. So I assume overshoots are a lot of that proportion of that. So pretty good, really wonderful. You can also, it gives you a point where you can put a sign, so you can actually make your sort of stop signs or give way signs closer together. So splitter island is a great option. So some people talked about offsetting. So I'm just going to delete some of my scribble here so I can offset the intersection. So offsetting the intersection means that you'd sort of have the road go like that. Now, this is obviously going to be more expensive, but makes for a really great elimination of a see-through effect, doesn't it? You can't see through that. But it has a board there, but it has a board there. You've got a wonderful setup. Now, note, as a road safety auditor, if you see a job and they've staggered it the other way, I'll do that, you're going to have some issues that you're going to want to pick up. If they stagger it this way, what ends up happening is that you get this situation where vehicles come up here, they look up to their right, and they sneak in here, and then they're sort of propping in the road. And even if you give them a right turn bay, and there's a few, those times when there's a few of them, they start queuing in, and you just get this mess going on here. All right, and you get the same out of this side. So what you actually want to do, you stagger it the other way, so it's a distinct turn across traffic. Now, those are all sort of supporting treatments, and anything associated with advanced warning up here, rumble strips to alert and everything like that, those are just supporting treatments, because we know we've still got high-speed vehicles here. We've given more warning. Vehicles will come in here, hopefully be better alert to there's an intersection, you've got to give way. But if mistakes still happen, right, for one reason or another, either overshoot or restart, we have this high-speed right-angle crash still there. So this is where we go back to, I think it was Chris who said that, you could look at changing the whole intersection form. A roundabout at this location would virtually eliminate death and serious injury for passenger vehicles. Now, this is not a highly pedestrianized area or bikes or everything like that, but certainly passenger vehicles, because as they approach, they would slow down. They're very aware there's an intersection there. If they enter the intersection and then there's a crash, the angle of crash is just wonderful. Like, those vehicles sort of bounce off each other. Roundabouts, like, up in the 85 to 90% crash reduction factor for passenger vehicles. So there you go. A little example there. Gave out a few prizes. Apologies if I didn't give you a prize on that and you said something awesome, which there was a lot of stuff coming in. But get in early, pop your ideas in. Okay. So we talked about these types of road safety audits quickly at the end of last session. We talked about pre-construction road safety audit. So that's like feasibility, early stage, preliminary design, detailed design, construction site audits, the traffic management plan and traffic guidance schemes, pre-opening audit, immediate post-opening, and the existing conditions, and thematic, which I skipped over, which is where we really dig into particular road users. I showed you these couple of slides. So we talked about these big picture planning style road safety audits where you're in there, you can do some, the advantage of auditing at this stage is they're still very willing to make fundamental changes to the project, trying to ensure that the best safety outcome is achieved and all their other objectives as well. So there's real scope for getting significant change to happen. As you get more meat on the bone of the design and the project progresses, it starts to get a little harder to make change. You're still certainly able to make changes at these sort of stages. And here they've sort of probably arrived at what they're generally thinking as intersection form, roundabout. And then they're going to start to hone in on how do we make this the safest roundabout possible. You might still be in there to question the actual fundamental forms of the intersection and the project. But certainly as you get to detailed design, it's very, very hard to ever get fundamental changes to the project. Not to say that the road safety audit doesn't provide huge, important value, but it's really into the details of the project. Have we got the geometric layout right? Have we got the super elevation right? Are we providing sight lines to the pavement at intersections, so forward sight distance, and is this all going to drain properly? Because that can be linked to road safety if we're going to get pooling of water on the carriageway. We don't worry, like our job as road safety auditors is not to undertake a whole drainage assessment of the thing. But if you concern, I don't think that'll drain that well and it'll pool on the carriageway, that's something you would flag. Technically, like if you went, that's going to, all of the water now is going to go into that house on the side. That's going to flood that house. It's technically not our concern as road safety auditors. Now, from a practical perspective, I would probably just note that somewhere in the audit and just say, hey, by the way, to note, this is going to have some serious flooding effects to that property, or is likely to. You should check that. But it's not a distinct road safety audit finding because it's not about death or serious injury or other injuries from a road collision, which is what we are there to focus on. And you really, with these stage of audits, you need to get somebody who sort of lives and breathes these types of designs and technical information and have them as part of the team. Now, I know some of you are those people. You're in there, you love the detailed designs, you get into it, right? That's great. If you're not somebody who looks at these and immediately can see issues or understand what's going on, it doesn't mean you can't add value to a road safety audit team, but it just means that you need to be aware that we pull teams together of people with different experiences. Often we find that you've got that detailed design expert in the team, and then you've got somebody who's not, but asks some really logical, great questions. Asks, pedestrians at this point, they're not going to stop and wait. They're going to go, or pedestrians over here, they're going to want to just go there. That's where they want to go. So could we, is there a possibility of providing pedestrian crossings on that side as well? You know, those sorts of questions, like how are road users actually going to use this? What are they going to perceive? What could be, you know, confused? And combining that with, you know, the understanding of the geometric layout and how all the signal phasing will work and everything like that can be quite a nice combination. Like one just example of some of the, you know, specific detail you start picking up in these detailed design road safety audits. And I picked just one out of any thousands I could have picked, but I like this one because I had a few good photos. Drivable culvert end walls. Now we've got an end wall or a head wall, as it's called, which is where you're taking the water under a driveway there, or an access point, or crossover. And yeah, the old practice there would be just put that wing wall, that head wall, and we saw lots of death and serious injuries involving vehicles leaving the road, abruptly stopping when they hit that. And so there was the development of what we call drivable culvert end walls, which are essentially these things, which, okay, they don't stop the vehicle in a nice controlled manner, but they at least make sure that the vehicle's not having that abrupt stop at that location. So a vehicle will, you know, go up on that. Now, we do drain our water sometimes across the road. And so this time we've got it going across. So this is a drivable culvert end wall. But the thing is that there's two types of drivable culvert end wall, and you've got a type 1 and a type 2. And ensuring that type 1s and type 2s are correctly specified in the design is important, because if you put this one running parallel, yeah, there's possibility of dropping in it. I think it'll actually work out generally okay, although you have some of these ones which have much wider gaps and things like that, and vice versa. Is this, you know, you can see the precision of detail. That one we see actually quite a bit that pops up because often people just copy, like, or they just talk about type 1. They often sometimes don't even know there's a type 2. And so a type 1, type 1, type 1. And it just happens that actually that one goes across the road and we need the type 2. And we talked about our construction sites, traffic management, thinking not just about conformance with the code and, you know, are the bollard spacings correct and is the taper long enough? All important stuff. But think bigger, think wider, think road users, think, you know, how are they going to move around here? You know, what's the tie-in? What's the lead-in? What happens when the traffic banks up? How are bikes going to get through here? How are pedestrians going to get through here? What happens when they close this, you know, for a long time, or, you know, a couple of minutes or something, and traffic really banks up? Where does that go? Are people just going to avoid this, divert down other roads that are more dangerous? You know, and you sometimes do this on really big schemes too, like you know, major freeway works, and you're thinking about all sorts of challenges, and also how does it interact with electronic lane use management systems? You know, which one should be shut down, where and how, and what are the configurations of that? So there's a bit of, you know, intense thinking to be done with it. But one thing I always flag is that if you're doing a small job, you know, you're doing some patching and you're using a standard roadworks layout, like for me, I would say it's overkill to do a full-blown road safety audit. That is something that the surveillance officer and the project engineer and the traffic management company all combined should have enough to be able to ensure that that is done safely. Okay, should it be great if we had road safety audits on all of them, but that is just, it's a huge effort for a very small project. So you've got to make that balance. And really what we ask is that people do that on a risk-based basis. It's hard to do because you're asking to do a risk assessment to get somebody else to do a risk assessment. But you kind of factor that in. You know, the length of the works, the size of the works, the volume of the road, the speed of the road. Those are all factors that immediately will flag this. Actually, okay, even though this is fairly small, it's on a high volume road. It's you know, high speed, and we still think a road safety audit should be done. And we talked about pre-opening, where you're sort of going and doing that last minute check. And I showed this fun little one. One of my colleagues was doing the pre-opening road safety audit with a team of the Peninsula Link just before they were opening up that, and they had marked this essentially not on a roundabout but on the exit. So there's dual exit, 2 lanes exiting, and they had marked one to go like that, which was correct, but they also marked the one next to it to go like that as well. They just used the same marking, which obviously then causes that same issue as this. So that was, you've never seen line markers work quicker in their life to get that. The minister was coming the next day to cut the ribbon, so everything was it was all happening. But those things happen. Multi-billion-dollar or billion-dollar project, whatever it was, and existing conditions audits. Let me before I finish on existing conditions audits, I'm going to give you a little warning. If you are a local government or a road authority representative and you think, well, these audits sound really good, they've got a great benefit cost ratio, we should be looking at doing audits more, I just warn you, don't get caught into the trap of saying we will undertake road safety audits on all of our roads over the next 5 years. All you will get is just like thousands and thousands of issues, right? Okay, there's some merit to that, but you'll never be able to afford to work your way through all of that. Instead, use a sort of way to filter that down to some really key roads that you've got concerns with, and then deploy the road safety auditors to give you details and ideas. One other place I really like an existing conditions audit, and I used to use this one when I was managing different areas at Vic Roads, was where you had those stakeholders that were really irate about a safety issue, and there was disagreement between the road authority and the stakeholders. Like either they were, determined that this was the most dangerous location ever, and we thought, well, actually, it's not. We've got other priorities, and we really think it's not as bad, or vice versa. We go, this is really bad. Something has to be done here, and we're trying to, get something, get some traction, get some funding, or reduce speeds, or implement some measures, and the community's pushing back for one reason or another. The deployment of an independent audit team to assess that situation and report back can be very beneficial. Now, a little trick I used to use was with the stakeholder group. I'd sort of give them a list of 5 audit companies or companies that could do road safety audits and say, well, I'll let you choose an audit team, because I don't want to, I'm not going to pick the guy that I've worked with for 25 years and he can come in with his audit team and tell exactly what I want him to say. It's nothing like that. Let's just, and they feel empowered, and then they understand a bit about that. But under those situations, you really got to sort of respect then what the audit team will say. But that's okay, because they will give an evidence base or an independent judgment on it. And that's what this one came up about. This was a local government who installed these one-way slow points, and the community just jumping up and down. This is the most dangerous thing. We don't know who's meant to go first and who's not. That's the whole purpose of a one-way slow point, is you intentionally do that only one car can fit through, and make them slow down to work it out. And so I was in a team that was out there and having a look at it, and we fundamentally we didn't have any high risk issues. We were more concerned with things like the pedestrians that were going along the road, and a little bit of at night. We didn't think it was quite lit up enough, but those sorts of things. Okay, this is good. We are ticking along nicely. I will get you involved in a few things in a bit, and of course I'll give you a break in half an hour or so. We usually finish this session a little bit early to give you some time to finish your quiz. You can have a quiz at the end of this session, but also a few of you still just dragging your heels on that assignment, aren't you? So hopefully we can give you a little bit of time to finish that off, upload it, and then you'll have a very relaxed weekend because you won't have anything hanging over your head. Okay. This module, I really want to talk about the 10 steps of a road safety audit. And these are the 10 formalized steps we undertake when we're doing any road safety audit, be that a feasibility early stage planning audit or a construction site road safety audit or a existing conditions audit. Yeah, we follow the same 10 steps. And I'll point you at further information about these steps. We're also going to cover off pedestrians as an isolated road user and understand, okay, what are their particular needs and how does road design and street design impact their safety? So I will give a prize if anybody can tell me something interesting about this sign. But road safety audit is a straightforward process. There are these 10 steps. I'll take you through them. They take time. Like, I can't stress that enough. People often think, oh, I can quickly do a road safety audit. No, they actually take time. Some of the stages of audit are a bit quicker than others, but still it's a time. That really do add value to infrastructure projects across the board, not just road safety projects, but any project, public transport project, congestion easing project, active transport project. We've got to be getting in there with this particular road safety mindset and understanding of what contributes to risk on the road. And they really need to be an integral part of that design process. Ooh, we had some interesting comments here, didn't we? It's in Victoria. Well, that's true. Wrong way around the roundabout. Mason has come through. I like that. And Anthony's clarifying exactly why that is. Well, I'll come back to that, and Mason gets a prize. But let's come back to that. I promise I will come back to that comment there from Mason. Let me go through the 10 steps first, and then we'll get back to that. So the first thing is that the audit team needs to be selected, and that is the responsibility of what I'm going to call a client. Now, in the Austra's guide, the most recent one, it was referred to as a project sponsor, because that gives a better definition usually of who actually holds the responsibility for the selection of road safety audit. And what I mean by that is, if a developer is coming to do work on, and they have to access onto the arterial road network, right? The client, like the actual engagement of the audit team is most likely done by the developer. But that's because the road authority, who is actually the project sponsor or the end client, has delegated that authority to the developer through the planning process. Okay, so project sponsor is the term that is often used. But I want you to just think the ultimate responsibility for the selection of the audit team is whoever is going to manage the asset after it's built and handed over to the long-term asset manager. Okay, so that's usually local government or the state road authority or territory road authority, or a private road operator sometimes as well, Transurban or something like that. And all of that background information needs to be provided, handed over. So everything that could be relevant to the audit team being able to do their jobs, designs, planning studies, traffic volumes, speed volumes, whatever you've got that could assist them. Now, then you sort of have this commencement meeting, which is an exchange of that information and clarification, and you start to sort of just check everybody understands what they've got, what's there, looking at the design. Now, this sometimes is done as a sit down around the table, pull out a big roll plot, lots of things, half-day workshop style stuff. That's usually on sort of big jobs. Sometimes these really condense down to an email and a phone call, basically, for a smaller job, or it's a client that's worked with the audit team. They know what they're doing. Everybody knows what they're doing. The designs are handed over. The audit is undertaken. So that's, really detailed review of the documentation, or the designs, getting out, looking at the site, understanding the risks there, and writing up an audit report. And you had a bit of practice of that in our last session, thinking about how you formulate that audit report finding and risk rating and recommendations. And then that report is handed over to the client. So they issue that, email it through, and then there's some sort of completion meeting. Again, it can be a sit down. Let's talk through each of these findings so everybody's clear on it. Often, well, not often, sometimes we've been asked to present. We want a presentation to our design team or our project management team on your audit and key findings, and we'll talk about it. But sometimes it is just an email it through, a phone call. Okay, everything clear? Yeah, these were the big ones we were really worried about, and off you go. Then whoever's received that audit report needs to respond to all those findings. Like, every time that the audit team has said, we're worried about this, here's our recommendation, they need to make commentary on that. Okay, they don't need to agree with it and accept everything, but they need to say, well, we disagree with this for these reasons, or yep, we agree, we're going to do that, thank you, and actually then make changes. If you're agreeing to something, yep, we agree it's an issue, we're going to take on your recommendation, we're going to make those changes and go and make those changes. Or, we agree you've identified something there. We don't like what you've suggested for one reason or another. We're actually going to do something else, and then we'll implement those changes. So they're the sort of steps we're talking about, those 10 steps I keep mentioning. Now, there was some discussion around transport for New South Wales, or doing audits in New South Wales. And what happens there, and that's a question that's just come in, so thank you for that. You issue your audit, so you don't put any recommendations in the audit. So basically just delete that whole column out of the audit report. You issue the audit, hold a completion meeting. Yep. Now, this is where it changes, because the receiver of the audit report, then they come up with what they believe could be done to lessen the risk of all these issues, and they implement their own changes. Okay, so the audit itself doesn't actually include any recommendations, it just includes findings. Now, in practice in New South Wales, what you'll probably find is that your client will say, can you do a road safety audit for me, please? And then give me a separate memo with some ideas on how we can lessen any risks. So they kind of do it anyway, but they don't want those two connected. Or some of them really just don't want any discussion about what could actually change. Okay, so the audit team. Now, you need a team leader and somebody that's appointed to lead the road safety audit. Now, this is usually a senior road safety auditor in most jurisdictions, and I'll tell you shortly sort of what is a senior road safety auditor. Level 3 auditor in New South Wales, they have 3 levels. Most jurisdictions have team leader and, they have senior road safety auditor and road safety auditor. Now, you can pull that team together. You can have just your team lead and then some road safety auditors, or you could have a team lead and some senior auditors, and you can have observers and trainee auditors. So a couple of jurisdictions like Queensland, for example, has some requirements that to be a road safety auditor, you need 5 years industry experience to be a road safety auditor. So if you're a graduate, for example, and you've done this course, what you'll actually be called is a trainee road safety auditor for your first 5 years in industry, and then you'll elevate up to auditor, and you will very quickly go to senior auditor from that, by the way, because if you're doing audits as a trainee auditor, you're still counting those as experience. But a few little tips for you. It's an audit team. A team indicates more than one person. We the Austroads guide, sort of says it has to be a team except for rare circumstances. So they have given a little crack in the window there that you might be able to slip through if you're in a low risk area or a remote area and these sorts of things. But yeah, we like a team. We ensure everyone's independent. We have a senior auditor leading the team. And ideally, we have this really wonderful mix of road safety experience, professions, ages, empathy with all road users, males, females. We get this nice, rich mix. Here's an audit team I put together. It's actually for a motorcycle specific audit. Me, Michael, Johan, wow, we all about the same age, male, engineers, worked in the road authority together. We kind of see things about the same. Like we're not really providing any unique ideas in there. So we asked Wendy to come along and be our rider and a different set of eyes, not an engineer, older than us, female perspective, just like different, injected different things in there, which sometimes we scratched our head at, but at least we were then thinking about those, weren't we? So you get all the background information. And yeah, I talked about the commencement meeting, looking at the documents, and you get out there and you undertake the inspections, and you do a daytime and nighttime inspection. Oh, it's Wally. Anybody who's not concentrating, wake up. Wally has arrived. Count your Wallies. So you get all of that information and you get out there. And why do we go out during the day and the night? Well, there's a number of reasons. I mean, one, and I've got this nice photo to illustrate it, which David Nash gave me, which is, you can see where North Croydon is pretty clearly there in the day. And at night, it's not as clear. So sign retroreflectivity, very obvious one at night. But there are more subtle ones. So certainly lighting, as Vuk said, like really important one to understand how, is there appropriate lighting? And there's a pedestrian crossing there. Is that appropriately lit? Does not look appropriately lit. But also things like lighting can create visual deceit, confuse the road user. Certainly I've done audits where you're looking at a new layout of a road and it's a design, and you get out to the existing and you go, okay, I sort of see where it's going to line up, and I'm like, oh, well, you've got a lot of vehicles coming over there, and the headlight glare is just going to be intense. Like the geometry on that'll be bad. And that at night, that just really sort of hits you in the face. So, those sort of things pop out. Sometimes the land use changes at night. Sometimes areas become really busy with nightclubs that you sort of don't really see during the day that they are nightclubs, and there's lots of intoxicated pedestrians around and those sorts of things, which changes stuff. But maybe one in 10 audits, I pick up something really meaty in the nighttime inspection that I wasn't expecting. So it's not every time, but it's just good practice to be going through that nighttime inspection as well. Now back to our sign. Well, Mason was right. Like, are there gaps in a roundabout sign? And the answer is yes, there are gaps in a roundabout sign. And it's a subtle clue, very subtle clue to, hey, we are driving this way around a roundabout. So that is not the right place. And I think Anthony was pretty quick in there after to say it's on the wrong side, the gap. That's how it's meant to look. So it's, just this very subtle clue, reminder to a driver, that's the way we drive around a roundabout. Now, you have to think, how many roundabout signs have I driven past in my life, and have I ever seen this gap? It's not the subtleties in the road environment are quite impressive. Now, some jurisdictions have slightly different sign layouts for roundabouts, but they generally ensure that you're going the correct way around the roundabout. Now, as a road safety auditor, if I saw that in a design or in existing conditions, okay, I'd point it out. But really, like, is this legitimately going to cause a lot of death and serious injury? And the answer is no. Chris has popped it in there and said low risk. And absolutely, like, to the point, I would actually drop it even off for a lot of them, not out of the report, but you don't have to put a risk rating to things. You can put this thing called a to note. And it's just often little bits and pieces like this. Hey, to note this, yeah, you've got the gap the wrong side in your sign. To note, if you don't believe it, like when you look at that risk matrix and you go, this could be out here for 200 years. It's not going to cause somebody to go the wrong way around the roundabout and crash. But if you believe in the context, actually, it could be a little bit worse, then you would start to risk rate it. And so the purpose of me putting this up is, well, it's interesting. I always like the subtleties of design and how we're making people do things and reminding stuff, but also to talk about the context of risk rating. So over to you. Where do you think, Rick's already answered my question. I didn't even ask it. Yeah, I like this group. Where do we think it's going to be a higher risk? And yes, tourist areas. Prize to Rick for, he's got that issue. Where are you based, Rick? Type that in. Here's one that I looked at and I went, I'd probably actually risk rate this one. Down beautiful part of the world, down the Great Ocean Road. This one is, okay, you land in Hobart, you go and get your rental car, and this is the first roundabout you hit. Okay, now Hobart is an international airport. It does get a lot of tourists, and they're picking up their car. And maybe they're coming from a country that doesn't have many roundabouts. They drive on the other side of the road. We're starting to get a little bit more. I'm still not going to put this as high risk, but it's going to get in there, maybe at least get a risk rating in my audit report. Beauty of this stuff is that they get fixed. That's not an issue. Okay. Let's go with what is in a road safety audit report. Well, we want to describe the project and the stage of audit you're doing. List the information provided. Okay. Important one here, and this is this will cover yourself if you ever find yourself in court as a road safety auditor, because what happens is you are given a certain set of information at a certain point in time in a project. You're given a design at this point in time. Then you're going to make a whole lot of comments on it, recommendations, and it's going to evolve. They're going to change things. They're going to do this. If issues will pop up along their design journey, they'll change things, alter stuff, and something will be built. If something that's built has issues and a crash should happen, and there's legal issues and they decide to drag the audit team in, you really want to know what you looked at, and you want to be really clear with what you looked at. And so actually putting this design, this design number, this date of design clearly in your audit is a very good practice. List of audit team members and the dates the audit was carried out. Some people like to put like the weather conditions when they were on site and those sort of things. And then we list our problems that we identify. So in your notes there, I've put a sort of sample table of contents, but Marissa, I think we might make a note that we'll put a few sample road safety audits into the learning management system. So people, if they haven't seen a lot of audits or have access to them, they can grab that. And like I'm fully okay with people copying us words, like, and because there's a lot of standard words in there that you're gonna put. So just copy ours, and like ours conforms with Austroads, the current guidance. Just copy that, and then run with your own brand. But actually, I remember now with the assignment at the end where we actually send people out on a site to do it, they get a template anyway, don't they?
I do get a template, yeah, but we can have a look.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
have a
chuck
look
some
at all
examples.
the resources. Sure, no worries.
Thanks, Marissa. So you issue the report, have a completion meeting, write responses, and then implement them. I talked through those, different stages. And really, like, I can't stress enough this implementation. Like, really, if there's never any intention to change anything, if it came up, what is the point of us doing the audit at all? So what happens with this report? It's given to the project manager or designer or whoever's sort of engaged them. Everybody needs to keep copies of it. And now the project manager responds in writing to all the recommendations in the audit, but they don't respond to the audit team. It's about like actually internally them doing something with it. It's nice when we get that audit report back as auditors and we see what they're actually going to do or not going to do, or what they liked and agreed with and what they're not, just as a learning sort of thing. But once you hand over that report, that's it, job done. It's not our job as auditors to check that they're implementing things or assess whether it's appropriate or not. It's our job's done. You may be asked to do more stuff, but technically your job's done as an auditor. And yeah, this is just highlighting the importance of actually doing something. A couple of other tips here. Just remember your audit responses can become public. So, that column, and if you're writing things in there, be aware that that's a freedom of information, will be grabbed and they will look at what was said there. So just write it in a way that you expect somebody else would read it. And it's good practice to give it back to the audit team as well, but not required. And I reiterate, if it's your project, you're the project manager, it's your project. And this is an advice piece done to help you reduce risk, but it's your project and you decide what happens and what won't happen. The auditors hold no legislative power. We have no ability to force you to do anything. We are providing you with advice. Be aware, though, that, this is an independent, essentially expert piece advising on safety issues, and courts and others will look at that in a certain light if something was to happen, but it's your job and you decide what happens. Okay, good. I'm going to stop sharing this one and maybe we'll take our little short break now, I think, Marissa. Let's come back on the hour if you're in a state that's 4 minutes from the hour. So 4 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll jump into pedestrians.
Okay. All right, I'll hit pause. Thanks.
See you soon. Okay. Well, hopefully everybody filled their coffee up, or water or tea or whatever they're drinking. Pedestrians. So part of a Austroad syllabus for a road safety audit course is that we delve in a little bit to the different road users we have and understand some of their specific needs and what we would be looking for in a road safety audit. Now, we're covering off pedestrian, cyclists, motorcyclists, cars, which sort of is spread across most of our content in varied ways, heavy vehicles. Now, within the pedestrian category, we also think about mobility scooters, people in wheelchairs, skateboards, micro-mobility modes, e-scooters, and the like. So it's quite a broad category. And a bit of terminology, I'm going to talk about pedestrians as I run through it. Some people sort of ask that there is the terminology people that walk, or people, if you're talking about cyclists, people that ride bikes, just to sort of, humanize the mode. I think we're okay to talk about pedestrians and cyclists and understand from that technical assessment perspective that terminology. But if you're somebody who's passionate about that, I apologize. Okay, so we want to identify the requirements of pedestrians for safe travel. And we're going to point you at some technical information regarding different infrastructure for pedestrians. And I will spend a lot of time just on common road safety audit issues for pedestrians. I think that's the most valuable for you as you're getting out there, starting your road safety auditing career, to understand some of the key things to look at. And we'll talk about a bit of terminology. Good, thank you. Wally is back. Okay, 4 sort of groups or categories of pedestrians at greatest risk. Let's go. Put them in the chat, win a prize. What do you think they are? 4 groups of pedestrians at the greatest risk. Okay. Children, elderly, disabled. Okay, we've got 3 of them. So, Marissa, you're going to have your work cut out for you, working out who you're giving prizes to there. Youth on phones. I like that's not one of the ones we have, but I don't think the research has been done enough in enough sort of modern day times to understand that specific risk. And we know it is a risk. Well, it's not just youth on their phone; it's everybody on their phone. Let's give Diana a prize there just for making us think. Hassan's got it. The intoxicated. Intoxicated is actually our highest risk pedestrian group. So elderly, young, disabled, and intoxicated. So elderly and young are overrepresented in death and serious injury of pedestrians for similar but different reasons. And I think it's pretty obvious to you. I mean, the elderly have a lot of challenges with cognitive processing of information. So just picking gaps and complex situations and the like is part of it. But also, like, there is a big reason why of their overrepresentation is, yes, frailty, as Chris has rightly put in there. The young, frailty ain't an issue. In fact, their ability to withstand physical force is exceptional. However, they, just the ability to process information cognitively as well and piece that together, and risk-taking and darting around and popping out and being hidden by things all contributes to their increased presence in road trauma statistics associated with pedestrians. Disabled, in terms of raw numbers, don't appear highly in death and serious injury of pedestrians. However, at a exposure level, like an actual rate, so involvement in crashes per kilometre travelled, for example, they are overrepresented, and that's due to things like not being able to cross at safe locations, or being forced to travel on a roadway because no other facilities are provided. And intoxicated, well, obvious reasons why intoxicated are at higher risk, but they are just like, when I say elderly and young are overrepresented, intoxicated just swamps that. Like, so much death and serious injury associated with intoxicated pedestrians. And you can sort of look at that in a traditional sense of saying, well, we should stop people getting intoxicated and wandering around the road network. Or you can look at it in a more contemporary safe system model and say, well, we'll do what we can to sort of discourage that. However, we just got to understand that and accept it in our design and alter the road environment to mean that this is not an activity that will cost them their life or their health permanently, that it is something that, has been factored into the design. Now, the basic pedestrian strategies, and Marissa, I'll check any questions. I see some things flashing there after this slide. So we can segregate, which is essentially to say, pedestrians, you're here, and vehicles, you're over here. You don't get to mix. Freeways, malls, those sorts of features. Separation and we can do in time or space. I've got a couple of slides on this, or integration, which is where you're intentionally mixing modes and getting them to share the road or street. So segregation, yeah, freeway is the obvious one. Like, we are doing everything we can to not have pedestrians on the freeway. If you actually undertake investigations into death and serious injury on freeways, you actually find pedestrians appear quite a bit, either getting out of their vehicles or some reason wandering on there, and you've got high speed and high volume and serious outcomes, but we're trying everything we can to not get them on there. And malls, of course, we're trying to not have any vehicles there, and if occasionally you might have a service vehicle or something, it's a very rare event. Separation in time is really that one bit of road space or street space is used by pedestrians solely at one point in time, and then by vehicles at another. So pedestrian crossings, classic example, or school crossings, or these types of crossings. Anybody know? There's a few names for this. I'll give prizes out if you can tell me any names where you can cross in all directions. So scramble, I'll give a prize for that. Oh, I like a waffle crossing. That sounds great. So that's a yellow box marking to try and stop vehicles queuing in here and the trams to go. Diamond crossing, no, nobody's getting the actual other term. Diagonal C. It's called a Barnes dance, but most people just call it a scramble crossing. Marissa, prize for scramble crossing, and fill me in. Were there any, did I miss any questions there, Marissa?
Barnes dance, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
It is. I assume Mr. or Mrs. Barnes came up with the idea back in the day and claimed it.
It's usually the way they all get their names. Okay, no, there was no question. There was just an observation by Vuk that tourist areas are higher risk also. Pedestrians unfamiliar with the surroundings, bright lights, and are often intoxicated in some areas, where he's particularly said Surfers Paradise, where he hates driving.
Yes. Yeah, no, really good points. Factoring some of that into your risk ratings and your thinking is good.
How do you spell that? Was that Barnes Den or Barnes Dance?
Barnes Dance, Barns, and dance. Like, dance. I don't know why it's a dance.
Like a dance, yeah.
Well, if you're in them, you're sort of trying to cross and you're dancing around people, I suppose. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, added to the traffic engineering trivia questions. Okay, separation in space is well, okay, it's in the road reserve essentially, but you've got footpaths or refuge islands or these areas where you provide those spaces for pedestrians crossing or to travel. Now, as a road safety auditor, I'm often thinking, okay, I know that I can get technical information about the width of refuge islands and these sort of things, what they should be under the standard. And I'll use that as a bit of an indication, but like, I'm not going to be 100% driven by that. Like, oh, meets the standard, I'm not worried. If I see it's an area and there's high pedestrian activity and there's more, like there's going to be obviously more than one or two pedestrians in there, well, that might factor into it. I'd be thinking about, well, can a father or a mother pushing a pram safely be here? Somebody on a bike prop there, is that going to be safe? Those things are usually factored into your jurisdictional standards on what the width is, but you need to be out there and do it on a case-by-case basis and see who's using it, what road users, how are they using it, how many of them are there, what are the other challenges? Chris brings up a good point. Like, we've got so many different modes out there. We've got cargo bikes, we've got these mobility gophers, wheelchairs, scooters. We're dealing with a lot of different things, and we just sort of factor that in our thinking. Some people will often see a pedestrian overpass as the ultimate solution for pedestrians, and I just want to flag that, we as road safety auditors need to be realistic in the expectations of, okay, will people actually use this facility that's being built? Okay. Now, this one down the Sunshine area, I mean, it's good in the sense that there's schools and school kids actually use it quite well and those sort of things. But understanding that a lot of pedestrians will just take the shortest, easiest route to where they want to go despite risks is a pretty important understanding as a road safety auditor. So don't be fooled into thinking that overpasses will solve all issues. Our role on something like a road safety audit of a pedestrian overpass job would be to, what are we doing to ensure that pedestrians use this or encourage pedestrians to use this? Now, is that a regulatory sign in Australia? Is that a sign that we actually use? So Rowan's asking, while people ponder, is that an actual sign? Rowan's asking a question around liability, and that's very sort of complex question. I mean, as a road safety auditor, following your correct practices and producing an advice piece, it's you've shifted liability really back onto the receiver of that report and their decision making. Like, it's pretty rare for auditors to be sued individually or as a team for their specifics advice. Yeah, I'll talk a little more about legal liability at the end. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'll talk to you about different cases I've been involved in and when I was managing it for auditing for the state and different legal projects and things we had going on. Yes, shared zones are part of the road rules. The national road rules and state jurisdictions use shared zones. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, good. James, giving us even the road rule 24, prize for that. And what is in that road rule 24 is it says that in this area, in this zone, pedestrians have priority. Pedestrians have right of way through the whole zone. Okay, vehicles are allowed in there, but pedestrians have priority. So here's one. They've added a give way to pedestrian sign, not required if everybody actually knew the road rules. The shared zone sign, that's exactly what it means. But there are these sort of guidance in the design of a shared zone. And I like some of the times that people in guideline documents make it a simple thing. And they say, make your shared zone not look like a road. And that to me really grabs it nicely. A good shared zone, if you drive in a well-designed shared zone, you will be driving on going, am I even allowed to drive in here? Like, it does not look like a road. So this one here, I think they've done some really good features in terms of they've made it a different color. They've got rid of curbs. So that's good. But then they've sort of line marked it as a road and straight. So could have done a little bit more on this particular one. Yeah, low movement, high place function is good if you're thinking in movement and place categorization, which is a nice thing to do. Okay, let's go to some specific road safety audit findings and then some investigations of some serious incidents that give us some learnings as auditors. So the first thing, the sight lines to pedestrian crossings is something I believe you will be picking up as you do road safety auditing. So this is not just formalized pedestrian crossings like this, as in where the pedestrian has priority, but it's also for those refuge island areas where we need to provide safe crossing sight distance for the pedestrian. Now, you can jump into the Austroads Guide to Road Design, get your formulas for crossing sight distances and the like. there's actually a little bit more to it when it comes to pedestrian crossings where the pedestrian has priority. But this is an interesting one where we have a vehicle approaching on a slip lane. Where is the driver going to be looking? Well, they're going to be looking to their right, aren't they? Because they want to put the foot down and go. And we've got a pedestrian priority, and then there's a bit of a sightline impediment. So this is a pretty ugly mix in the sense that we have a vehicle moving forward with the driver in control of the vehicle not looking at a conflict point where the other road user has priority. Not good at all. Now, there's different things you can do here. Firstly, opening up your sight lines would improve this. Raising that crossing to a wombat crossing, as has just popped into the chat there, beautiful. That's going to significantly reduce that risk. Do you need the slip lane? Slip lanes are often needed from a actual physical perspective to get larger vehicles around some curves, or also for traffic operations perspectives. But then, could you link this in with the signals or the like? And talking about larger vehicles getting around curves, we've seen a bit of a spate in recent times of larger vehicles tracking over pedestrians waiting at signalized pedestrian crossing points and killing the pedestrians waiting there. Now, those pedestrians are, the CCTV on some of these, they're on their phone, as we all are, usually standing, waiting for the lights to change. And then a large vehicle just can't make the turn and tracks over. This one's okay. You can see the bus is sort of making its turn, but it's just something to be aware of, and especially at that design stage, to really check those swept paths, make sure the appropriate design vehicle is chosen and checking vehicle are chosen, and thinking about those. My colleague Jamie is going to talk to you a bit in detail about swept path analysis and what we should be looking at as road safety auditors when we get into that stage. Sometimes in a road safety audit, it's about looking at what's not there, not just what they are planning, but what's not there. And if this route, for example, is going to become a heavy vehicle bypass route for a town, and it currently doesn't have any pedestrian facilities, and pedestrians will walk on the verge, but in winter when it's muddy, these sort of things, they walk in the shoulder like that. That's where it happens. So, okay, it's not great as it is, but when they start pumping all their heavy vehicles through this road, it's going to be even worse. So is this our opportunities to start to look to inject those pedestrian facilities into the design? And we can suggest that as road safety auditors. And here's another one where we see similar. There's no pedestrian facilities. There is a gap in the roundabout sign though, isn't there? There you go. You'll never be able to see a roundabout sign without looking for gaps. This one will be even worse because the pedestrian, you can see there's going over a crest. So if that was muddy, if that was wet, if they were in a wheelchair, on a mobility scooter, pushing a pram or something like that, really they're going to be essentially in the road shoulder and over a crest on a medium speed road. We've got a pretty bad situation. So pedestrian desire line, That's a term we use a lot as road safety auditors. And the pedestrian desire line just means from the point pedestrians are to the point they want to be, draw a straight line. That's their desire line. Pedestrians of any road user just do not deviate off their desire line, or they're very reluctant to do so. So we want to provide crossing facilities on their pedestrian desire line. And really, if you start to try to corral pedestrians off their desire line to your certain, what you're trying to get them to do, a proportion of them are just going to still go on their desire line. Like, here's this girl going, well, no, I want to go over here to Footscray Station. I was here. I want to go over there. All right, you put up a pedestrian fence. I'll just walk on the road for a bit. Like, we need to be aware that can happen. And pedestrian fencing to me is not something I like to deploy a lot. I'm very selective with my pedestrian fencing for a few reasons. One is this, that you can actually cause road safety issues where people will walk on the road and then they can't get, that's what they'll do, especially like if they're intoxicated but even like in these normal situations, they'll just, so that's one. Secondly, which is not a road safe, this one's not really a road safety one. It's just it is a massive eroding of your place value of an area if you pedestrian fence it and just like corral your pedestrians like sheep and like it erodes place value in a big way. Okay, so it can be used in specific locations, very well thought through. Two of my favorite places to use pedestrian fencing. One is outside pubs or bars or any drinking establishment or nightclubs or anything like that. I've done 2 coronial investigation, so deaths that have occurred outside of pubs and bars where patrons have come out straight onto the road and killed. And that's been, one of them was 2 gentlemen were fighting and out onto the road, sort of pushed out of the establishment. And the other, very unclear, some fell onto the road straight out of the pub. And so essentially the pedestrian fencing in those locations is not to corral pedestrians, it's to contain. And that's another spot where it's outside school gates and the like is really a containment to stop them, playing and going onto the road in those situations. Very targeted use to actually direct pedestrians where to cross and the like can be effective, but just always be aware that it can backfire on you in a big way. I saw this on LinkedIn and I thought it was a good explanation of pedestrian desire line. Thought I'd chuck it in there. Lots of photos of pedestrian desire line. You can see it often. I was talking to somebody, I think it was City of Greater Geelong. They said, sometimes with new parks, we put them in and then we don't put our paths in. We let it just run for a while and we see where the goat tracks appear and then we put our paths there. I'm like, that's awesome. That's just like user-centric design perfectly. Now, if you segregate community with roads, this doesn't happen a lot in Australia anymore. Like, if we segregate a community, they will still cross. They need that movement. So in those early feasibility stages of audits, you really want to think about that. If big new roads are planned or the like, you got to think about, where do pedestrians need to go? And they will go, so we need to provide those facilities. Let's have a look at a couple of other case studies, and then I'll give you a little challenge before I let you go. This is there was a serious incident involving pedestrian, and this is what the driver sees looking up here along the road. The next photo is taken just behind this hazard board marker. So let's jump to there. That's what the pedestrians see. So now the question I've got for you, who's got priority there? The vehicle or the pedestrians? Even a little bit of confusion in our group. It is the vehicle. Technically, the vehicle has priority because this is not marked as a shared zone. It's not marked as a pedestrian crossing. It has no pedestrian crossing legs and the zebra crossing stripes or anything like that. So the vehicles have priority here. The pedestrians are meant to wait for the vehicles and then cross when appropriate. But you can see that the design has subtly given an impression that it's pedestrian priority a little bit, or encouraged that. Now, we can look at that and go, well, in accordance with the standards, it's not pedestrian priority. But it didn't take us long, my colleague and I, who are out there doing this investigation. These gentlemen just walked up, chatting away, walked straight out, and the car slowed down and stopped. Great. Okay. Completely altered priority, but and unfortunately, in one instance, the driver continued along, assuming the pedestrian would stop, and vice versa. So the key point here I want to make is confusion of priority is a big issue associated with pedestrians. And let's just be clear with our priority. If it's going to be vehicle priority, don't try to make it look like a really enticing crossing point from the perspective of this one. If it's going to be pedestrian priority, make it pedestrian priority properly. So even these sorts of courtesy crossings I don't like. It's not it's not well defined. This one, again, like, I love a threshold treatment, slow vehicles entering a residential area. Marissa, I'll take questions in a minute. Slow vehicles entering a residential, make that reduce speed at the crossing point. It just, right, the way it all sort of configured, it could be perceived as a pedestrian by, as their priority through this area. Now, this is complicated and stupid road rule in the sense that it is pedestrian priority for half of it, but not the other half, due to just, but anyway, that aside, like, we can be clearer on it. Now, I think this is a good example of a threshold treatment that still is clear that this is a road, right? I'm not saying that, like, that's a choice to be made. Like, this could be absolute pedestrian priority with the correct, zebra crossing markings and the correct signage. But if it's not, be clear. So a pedestrian walking up there, as this one is, see, that's a road. I'm approaching a road. Oh, look. Good old airports. Anybody know where this airport is, actually? Oh, gee, I'll give a prize for that. But airports are just a treasure trove of road safety audit findings. Oh, it is Launceston. Well done. Good old Lonnie Airport. You get off there, and then there's this sort of, is it pedestrian priority? Is it vehicle priority? It's actually vehicle priority through here. Okay, the raised nature of this is going to certainly lessen risk, but surely that could have just been made pedestrian priority, couldn't it? Or, anyway. Courtesy crossings is what the general name for this is, which is, it's, trying to warn drivers that pedestrians could be crossing at these locations and slow them down a bit. Like, okay, I like the raised nature of it, but let's not try to confuse people. Let's just be clear on that priority. Put the pedestrian legs, put them in, put the line marking. This one needs line marking as well. Just make it clear. Okay, I'll pause on this one, I think, while I take questions from Marissa. This one I had to have a good chuckle at, which is a pedestrian crossing, but it's obvious that the installers of the signs believed that the signs were to highlight to pedestrians where they should cross rather than to vehicle drivers that a pedestrian could be approaching, which, it's a very low risk area. It is in Hobart, down on the, it's a very low risk area, low speed. So you can have a chuckle about it. I still shot an email to council and told them to get onto that, which I think is fixed now. So it's good. Right. What did I miss?
Questions, Ken, and we're just observations, just mainly in regard to the slide you had on the priority at the crossing. You had priority there. Just some comments. Lucinda's saying that pedestrians always have priority, but there is nothing stopping a vehicle from going, as it was not unline marked. Should have zigzags, leading stripes on the ground and so on, potentially a raised one-back crossing. Some other comments, the stones and bricks lets pedestrians think they have right away.
Yep.
Poor contrast between the surfaces. And Isabella's asking, is road safety being taught in schools?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot we can do with design that doesn't require anybody to be taught that. We can certainly make areas incredibly safe with people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. But yeah, it's a holistic system. Sort of look at it. And when I talk about pedestrian priority, I'm talking about priority in a formal sense, not in a planning sense. Like, there's two different ways that I think about that. And back to my, studying transport planning 101 is you prioritize the road user that expends the most amount of their energy, and pedestrians get number one, and cyclists, and then motor vehicles, single use motor vehicles are sort of bottom of the transport planning for your first prioritized thinking. But what I mean by priority is the legal priority under the road rules of who gets to give way to who. Okay, here's a crossing down Ricks Way, actually. It's not actually Rickstown. It's, what is it? Port Campbell. But don't worry about these bits. Let's just have a look at the crossing, and it's next town over, or a few towns over. If you got this as it was a design before they built this pedestrian crossing, apart from maybe you want to make it a raised crossing, what small tweaks to the design do you think you could do that would improve or lessen the risk of this crossing? I don't think it's high risk, but what could you do to improve the risk? Small tweaks. Okay, so we've got, people wanting to sort of do curb out stands. And so curb out stand, move it out a little bit. It sort of does have curb out stands as it is, but could we do that? People want to raise it. People have got some interest in the shrubs covering the signs. These are all great things to look at. Okay. Yeah, Anthony and Rick are sort of looking at one that I had an interest in, although I do like everything that is coming in. Yet some people are still determined to talk about these lines on the road surface, which they're just trying to activate their street a bit and make it, I'm not highly concerned about it, but yeah, maybe as an auditor, when you got out there and you had a look and you thought, is it confusing? All these sorts of things. No, I'm really interested in sight lines to this pedestrian crossing, as it's been pointed out, for vehicles coming this way, especially. And, if you have a small road user, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, somebody in a wheelchair, even coming up here, the sight lines are not going to be great. So, yeah, could we? I mean, like, as simple as simply have this on all these bin and everything on the other side, departure side, so that the pedestrians are in sight line. Think about where your parking is, ensuring those sight lines. You actually go sort of 1.6 meters back, and then you draw your sight triangle off that. It's the way we tend to look at it. So, and you do that from 0.5 to 1.5 in terms of that's got to be the clear sight envelope. So 0.5 meter up and 1.5, that window really has to be kept clear at 1.6 meter back. So not sort of meeting it in this one. So yeah, a few people were onto that, which is good. Let me take you through a couple of other sort of tragic events before I get you to do something. This one is a coronial investigation report again, looking into the details. So a pedestrian stepped out here, struck by a vehicle coming through here and killed. So let me show you what the vehicle sort of sees. This is the vehicle sort of approaching. That other photo was taken here, looking that way. If I go back a little bit further, you can see this is a high-speed road. and enter into the service road here at speed. So it's very hard to see from photos, always hard to sort of articulate this, but when this is green and this is green and this thing's ticking away, it's pedestrian priority all the way to here, and then you've got a bit of a spot there. So combining a few things, that see-through effect, that confusion of priority to a degree, probably it won't be a conscious confusion of priority, but something for us to have a think about. That's how it looks now. Linking up, adding that priority, slowing vehicles down. You kind of wish that we could have got in there earlier and proactively done this rather than the way it's come about. Be clear with your client that a road safety audit is not a Disability Discrimination Act audit, a DDA audit, which checks the tactile ground surface indicators are there and they contrast, and the handrails are right, and the grades of any ramps are appropriate, and there's a huge amount of stuff in the DDA standards and requirements. We are not checking that. Okay, you might, as a road safety auditor, notice something and pop it into your report, but we're not doing that full DDA audit. Jump past those. I want to go here. And I want to get you starting to think about crash risk. I'm going to do this in a little interesting way. I'm going to actually bring up a site, which I've brought up here, which has a particular spot that has caused that 6 pedestrian incidents have occurred, of which 4 have been serious injury crashes and 2 more minor ones. Okay, I'm going to give you a few options here, so you don't need to write it into the chat. I see people are already having a guess. It's good, you're going for your prizes, but I'm going to give you some options, and then we're going to put a poll up, aren't we, Marissa? We're going to have you get to choose through a poll, so it'll pop up on your screen in a second. But let me give you some options here, and some of them are options that people are already guessing at, which is good because they're immediately honing in on where is the pedestrian risk. Okay. Quiz time. So here are our options, and I'll talk them through, and then the box will pop up on your screen. So we have crash number 1. In crash diagram notation, we always use a dotted line for a pedestrian and a solid line for a vehicle. Okay, so the vehicle is turning onto the pedestrian. That's number 1 in this location. Number 2, again, the vehicle turning onto the pedestrian, number 2. Number 3, the pedestrian walking out and the vehicle in the slip lane. Number 4, same, but this other one with a slightly different geometric configuration. And number 5 is a vehicle turning through the keep clear and a pedestrian walking along the footpath. Okay, so what you're going to have to do is have a think about which one of these is the spot where all these crashes have happened. They all have a certain degree of pedestrian risk, but which one comes out as the highest in your mind? Marissa, let's pop that poll up if you can. There it is. Now, you can move the poll around on your screen so you can look. And of course, remember, you're not being marked on this. This is just for you to have a bit of a go and a bit of a guess and have a think about it. And then we'll reveal the answer and we'll see how we're going. I'll give you 30 seconds on that. All right, and let's go with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make your final guess. And let's end that poll. Let's see what we decided here. Okay. We've got a lot of people going for 1 and quite a few for 2 as well. And then we sort of go into 3, 4, and 5 was the least of the attractions there. So let's get rid of that. And I'll talk you through what the answer was and why. Now, remember here, I intentionally gave you the other 4, which I identified some pedestrian risk, but the answer was 2. So well done if you said 2, and don't be too concerned if you didn't, because you didn't have much time and you didn't get out on site and see it all, and there's a whole lot of other things. But why is 2 so significant here? Well, the reason is it's a very weird configuration to have your pedestrian crossing on the turn side after a slip lane or any turn, like or the way this is configured. And if you think about that, the pedestrian's going to have priority there in the sense that they're going to have a green light. They're going to start walking, and the driver is looking up for their gap in traffic. And just actually at the timing of this is that the vehicles slow down, stop, the green light goes, and that's the point that the vehicles are turning, and they're looking in the complete opposite direction. So, this one's played out with the crashes, and there you go. It's, again, a reactive fix to make it so the pedestrian crossing goes into the little island, and then there's the crossing. Okay, it's still not ideal, we talked about, the vehicles still looking up that way, but at least in this sense, it's sort of configured in that particular arrangement. Now, as a road safety auditor, I sort of systematically go through a design. So imagine this is a design, they're building this new intersection, they've got some constraints with services and other challenges, and so this is how they've decided they're going to do it. Well, I kind of would start myself here in all these scenarios. Maybe I'd start myself further back. This is in my mind, right? And I go, okay, I'm a driver. I'm in my car and I'm approaching this intersection and I want to turn right. And I ask myself questions. Okay, am I going to be able to see where I need to go? Is it clear? Yeah, I'm going to get up there. Okay, I've got a right turn bay. Is that just right turn? Can I see the signals? Okay, now I'm making my turn. Okay, oh, what if I go too fast here? Where am I going to go? Okay, I'll leave the road here. Are these vehicles going to be able to see me? All right, and I ask myself lots of questions like that. Then I come back here and I go, okay, I'm a driver again. I want to go straight. So I'm going to go, okay, I'm going straight up here. Is it clear which lane I'm meant to be in? Can I see the signals? You know, do these lanes line up? Is there any confusion there? No, okay, all good. Now, and then I go, all right, now I want to go left. So I'm coming up here and I go, oh, hang on, do I turn into this one or what's going on here? And then I'd sort of like flag that in my mind. I'd go, that's something weird going on there. And then I'd go, okay, I went down that one. Where do I go? And then I go, okay, if I go into this one, okay, what happens here? Okay, I'm going to look up there and I'm turning. Oh, why am I going onto a pedestrian area? And hopefully I would have flagged that at that point. So, you know, for those who said that one, I can see why you did. You've probably done exactly what I did in my mind and gone, well, that's weird. What's going on there? Why are we turning in there? And then you do that for like all road users in all directions, in all movements. There's a lot of sort of just systematic thinking, isn't there? Because you're doing it with a bike, you know, you're on a bike, you're coming this way, you want to turn right, you want to turn left, you want to go straight, you're a pedestrian, you want to go from McDonald's over here to the, whatever that is, I think it's a pub, you know, like, or it's probably vice versa, isn't it? Go to the pub to Macca's. And you know, these sorts of, you're moving all this around in your mind and looking for issues. It is kind of like modeling every movement in your mind. And you know, when you're systematically doing it, as I say, audits can take a while, but you can move through that in a reasonable fashion and cover off all those road users. When we undertake road safety audits, we want to ensure we're out there at times of day where there's particular activity, obvious, schools. If you're undertaking a road safety audit and there's schools in the area, you've got to get out there, school drop-off, school pick-up, see how it operates, see all the chaos, understand that. If it's the local footy ground near that, try and get it on a home game, see how it operates. Okay, practically, you may not be able to actually do that within the scope of what you've got, but if you can, get out there for those times. And, our trivia that started off with some pedestrian crossing features, so puffin crossings, the pedestrian user-friendly intelligent crossings. So that's the little thing up there that you can add to pedestrian crossings, which is when you walk up to your house at night or someone's house and the lights automatically go on, well, it's the same technology. It just holds the light red while any movement is on the crossing. So pedestrians are lagging or slow or the like, just keeps cars held. Somebody went on a bird theme when they started coming up with pedestrian crossing facilities, and everybody stuck to it. And so that's puffin crossings. Toucan crossings. Well, toucan is it's almost like just a conformance with the road rules, because it's saying that two can cross, pedestrians and cyclists. So cyclists can ride over the crossing. Really, to me, it doesn't make any difference in road safety, because bike riders just ride over pedestrian crossings anyway, even if there's not the symbol. But it's a legal conformance thing. Two can cross. I'm not making up these ones. Pelican crossing, that's a pedestrian light controlled crossing. So goes from a red light, this is what the driver sees, the pedestrians are walking. Then it goes to the flashing amber, flashes for a while. And that's just, again, to provide warning if anybody's struggling, somebody's slow to cross the crossing or the like. Then it goes to green. That's a pelican. Pedestrian light controlled crossing is what it sort of stands for. That was a UK, like in the world's top 10 funniest road signs or something. It makes complete sense to me, but anyway. Pegasus crossings, that is, horses, crossing for horses. Again, this is a road rule configured one, because technically a horse is a vehicle and you can't, you can't ride your horse over the crossing. I think we're getting a little. Actually, Marissa, and I've told you this one before, but I'll tell everybody that, did you know it is illegal to ride a horse when you're intoxicated? Because that's drink driving.
I know now, because you've told me before.
And I also told you that it is not illegal to ride an intoxicated horse.
Go figure.
Yeah, as long as the horse got itself intoxicated.
Yeah.
Allowed to do that to horse. On that point, I better start ending up our session here. But I do want to highlight to everybody that Austroads does produce these things in the back of the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6 that are what we call prompt lists. Now, they are not like checklists. You don't just go through these and your audit's done. No, they're just there to prompt your thinking. And there's one on walking and cycling, and it has lots of questions. So that's going to help you as you start auditing to think about lots and lots of issues that could present risk for our road users. So I'll be encouraging you to grab that out of the learning management system and have a look at it as we tick on. I'm not going to do that last quiz, and we're not going to do our 360-degree exercise. I'm going to stop it there, check if we've got any final questions or comments, and then give you some time to finish your quiz, because you've got a little quiz at the end of this. I don't think we've got a question in there, can you ride an intoxicated horse? But we should chuck that in just to see if people are listening.
Yeah. And also, you can't gallop a horse in a 10K zone, because that is considered speeding.
Oh, good. Like it.
I like that one.
And horses have to give way to pedestrians in shared zones. And of course, finish your little assignment. So anything you need to cover off, Marissa, or can we let them have 10 minutes?
No. Have you covered module 2 quiz yet?
I told him to do it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that's about it then, really. Jump onto the LMS, complete the quiz, complete your module 1 tasks if you haven't already. And that's about it. Yeah, we've given you a bit of time now
Yep.
to do that.
All right. And very importantly, have a good weekend.
Yes, thanks. We'll see you next week, everyone. Or Loretta will see you next week. So lovely seeing you all today,
Loretta's got
everyone.
trivia, so log in a bit early.
See
Bye.
ya. Bye.